Right, welcome to the podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Kevin.
Are you sure?
Um, well, that's what it says on my birth certificate. Um, it could all be a lie though, and I'm not really me. I've got like false memory implants or something weird.
Well, you could be an NPC, couldn't you? Mind you, if you're questioning that, then maybe you're an NPC that's become self-aware.
I'm definitely not an NPC because there's no like question mark above my head. Letting people know that there's a quest available.
We're both authors and creators, and as a writer, they say read, like read your genre so that you can get better at your own writing and stuff to become a better writer. But good writing is probably no substitute for a good story, is it?
No one told me you had to read. I can't
Yeah.
read.
Oh, you can only write.
Uh, that's an oxymoron, isn't it? Or
I
is
can
that just
tell.
moronic?
I can.
Epoxymoron.
Yeah.
Epoxymoron. Glory
I,
be.
I kind of got that impression when I read your last book.
Yeah. This guy doesn't read anything. He's a joker.
But well, I always say read, but I also say watch as well, because I reckon that when you watch a movie or you watch like a series, you get all of that information that you need, as in story structure and character development. You get that probably a lot quicker, because reading, you have to. Well, it takes ages to read a book, doesn't it?
The trick to reading a book is always like open a book, look at the page, and when you feel you want to look away from the page, don't keep reading. It's a very slow process.
Yeah, and then you end up reading half a book that you don't really like.
I've downloaded the Lord of the Rings again because I wanted to well, I was going to read them, but then I'm like listening to this now, and Andy Serkis reads it, and he's pretty good. Yeah, so if you're out walking the dog, you can't walk along like with a book out, like because you
No.
tend to fall over lots or tread on dogs. I was going to say or tread in dogs, but you don't really tread inside a dog. That'd be really well. Actually, that's bizarre. Was it like reading a book and getting so engrossed in it when you're walking out and you look up and like, I don't know where I am. I'm lost.
And that's the same with running as well, because mostly I listen to Audible when I'm running.
Takes your
So
mind off
yeah,
the agonising pain in your legs.
it does. I used to have to listen to music, and I used to have to listen to like Five Finger Death Punch, so I get that beat, dun dun dun, and I could run to the beat. Once I got used to running, because I've never liked running. I found that I didn't have to listen to music with a regular beat anymore. I could just listen to Audible.
Well, the thing is, I think with if you have the wrong sort of music when you're running, or if you're it's sort of the soundtrack to your life at that moment. So if you've got like heavy music pounding out, running down a nice pleasant park, from a cinema point of view, that just wouldn't look right. You've got to have a soundtrack that matches your location, or
That's
sinister music because you're running from someone, and I'll make you
yeah.
run faster. Stalking music.
Well, I do run in the dark as well. That can be a little bit.
That sounds sinister.
There's little alleyways around where I live. Some of them don't have any lights in them at all. So sometimes when it's dark, you run through it. And if there was a bit of moonlight, then that would be great. But if there's nothing, then there's little steps in between. And yeah, I'm like, falling all over the place while I'm running.
But you want for those nighttime running like that, you want to have like anything with a D minor chord on it. Anything with a D minor sounds sinister.
Yeah, so true.
Oh.
That's what I used to with an old Yamaha keyboard, and it'd always be pressing the lowest key into
Yeah,
sound.
and making it stretch out for ages. You're like, oh my god, something bad's about to happen.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I used to love like things like The Omen and anything to do with like satanic, anything like that. That was scary. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Actually, I haven't changed.
So when you were a kid, you're telling me you were into Satanism.
Yeah, one of my mates used to say that he'd sit there, and this was before we like really knew each other. So I would sit there and I would draw and stuff, and I'd like usually draw, dead bodies and things.
Normal childhood stuff.
No, but yeah, and my mate would sit there like just going, "Oh my god, he's weird." And actually, he said he was at one point he was a little bit scared because he was like, "What the?"
If you were sitting next to me in school and I saw you were drawing dead body pictures, I'd grass you up straight away.
Yeah, you could either say this is a psychopath in the making, or you could say that guy's really creative.
Or he's
And
seen lots of dead bodies.
yeah, exactly. I got told off. I was about eight, maybe 8 or 9, and it was at a time when I'd watched Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Uh,
It's the one where
that's one of the
uh,
better ones.
yeah, it's brilliant.
Dream
And
Warriors.
Dream Warriors, that's it. And I drew a picture of Freddy Krueger, and I remember my dad saying, like, telling us off because I think they said something like, "That's a nasty man." He must have thought, like, "What the hell, this kid? He's drawn Freddy Krueger. Where's he got that from?"
From your video collection, Dad?
He let me watch Creep Show, and he
Oh,
must have thought that was some kind of, I don't know, comic book kids
comic
thing.
book.
But yeah, that freaked us out. I
Is
remember.
that the scariest image, even though he's not the scariest of person, where he
Yeah,
gets the water rush over Leslie Nielsen, is it?
yeah. Is that when he buries them in the sand? Oh, is
Yeah,
that?
with a
Yeah.
TV screen to watch the
Yes.
other one drowning, and then they
That's it.
drown and they both come back as zombies and
Yeah.
bury him. And they're like, "How long can you hold your breath?" And he's like, last words are, "I could hold my breath for a long time." And don't call me Shirley. There's a new South Park film out called The Streaming Wars. I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
No, I haven't.
It's only on Paramount Plus. Basically, they're
Ah,
taking the piss at there's too many streaming services,
yeah.
but streaming services to them is that the integrity farmers, they want to sell the rights to the stream water that flows through their farm to the city.
Ah, right.
So everyone wants to sell a bit of this stream that runs into the city for the water. So they all start getting streaming services going. It's obviously what they mean.
South Park lost me a little bit when they started doing the kids when they were superheroes, Mysterion and all that.
I
I
like the
did,
first one, and then they did like the trilogy of them.
yeah.
Well, I still maintain that one of my favourite ones was the episode with the first one with the Cooning, and it's like he's doing a proper Batman piss take. It's brilliant.
He showed. Oh, is this the one where he shows up in the window at the police
Yeah,
station, the
no, I'm
precinct?
over here. I'm over here
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that's it.
He scratches someone with his little king claws, and he's like, "Oh, geez, that stings."
My all-time favorite though is the Buck Rogers style one, the Nintendo when he wants the
Oh
Nintendo Wii.
yeah, he can't wait 3 weeks for a Nintendo Wii, so he
Yeah,
freezes himself.
yeah,
And they've even done that crap sort of wobbly CGI effect on him as they're doing the
yeah.
Buck Rogers intro.
Oh, that one is brilliant. But also,
Yeah.
also, Imagination Land. That's an excellent one too.
Imagination.
I even know it. Imagination.
Yeah, imagine. As there are two that stand out to me, and that is Make Love Not Warcraft
Yes, brilliant.
with
The
the
Sword of the
Yeah,
Force.
Thousand Truths
yeah.
and
And
the
you've got Cartman getting fat, and he's like, "Mom, mom," and she's bringing a
yeah,
book.
toilet, toilet.
The other stand-up one
To me, and it's purely because it's where Randy Marsh comes out as like this is the new favorite character, is where they're all bored playing baseball, and Randy's like, "I've just seen my guy," and he gets into fights with other like parents,
Yes.
and he's basically like, "Oh, I've got to train," and he like gets out of bed in the grey Rocky uniform, goes down, you see him breaking eggs into a cup, thinking he's gonna like down it, and then he just fries an egg up.
That Randy Marsh is probably one of my favorite characters. I absolutely love South Park. So, but that's why we're doing this, aren't we? To talk about what we
South
think.
Park.
Yeah, shall we get into it then?
Yeah, what are we watching? What are we talking about?
We're talking about Twin Peaks, and this is
Oh
the
yes.
pilot, not episode 1, the pilot. And
Oh, that's classic.
what I've discovered. So, as you know, I've tried watching this before, and I found it a difficult watch, right? But this week I watched the pilot, and I was like, where did I watch it before? I was looking around Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of that, and I ended up having to buy it on Amazon Prime for like $2.99.
Oh, that's $2.99 worth having that. That's
Yeah, but what I've discovered is, uh, I the one that I watched previously was the international version.
Oh my God, it's a European version that you want to watch.
That's it.
Is that the
Yes.
one you've watched now?
No, I don't know how to find that one. So the
Oh
previous
man,
one was that version, the longer version, and this one I was like, oh, this is slightly different. And yeah, it doesn't have the end bit where they're in the red room and
yeah.
you guy
Oh,
talking
that's the
backwards.
best ending because it's like literally got to the killer, killed the killer, and then suddenly it's 25 years later, and you're like, how did he? And you're left with that question of like, well, how did he get there? What is this weird place?
Yeah,
How is
yeah.
it? Why is Laura Palmer there? And then it ends and the credits just play, and you're like, I want to know more.
Let's just say, for anyone listening, that spoiler alert, there's going to be tons of spoilers, and
More so for you. I've seen the entire series like 100 times.
yeah, that is true. Oh, well, it's okay. So I'm gonna get straight to it. Right, I found it really difficult to watch, especially
What?
especially this pilot episode because it's so slow. Like the intro was 2 minutes and 40,
Yeah.
just the intro, and I'm like, oh my god, this is just
But
oh god, I was
but it
almost giving
doesn't
up.
get better because in the series 1 and 2, it's the same intro that lasts for as long as that.
Yeah,
It's like
yes.
half the show.
Well, when we go into episode one and the rest of them, I'm just gonna fast forward through the intro. There's no like
Right.
difference in any intros, is there? They're not doing anything clever there, are they?
No, but
Yeah.
the thing you've got to remember about the pilot, I'm putting my serious hat on now, is that I don't know if you're familiar with the director David Lynch's work or not. But
No.
essentially, he's a film director. He's behind like he's done Elephant Man, the original '94 Dune. You've got Wild at Heart, Blue Velvet, all sorts of like films that are a little bit odd. So he's got a very strange, unique style. He's one of my favourite directors. But anywho, he's not someone who's done TV before. So I think what you've got there is he's approached that pilot as directing like a movie for TV.
Yeah.
So where you say it's got a slow kind of a long intro, and the pace is quite a bit slower because he's directed it and written it like he would have done one of his movies.
Yeah.
Now, David Lynch movies aren't everyone's cup of tea because they can be a bit strange. They're not like your regular movies.
No.
But what you'll find is you'll have a very different experience on the actual series because you've got Mark Frost writes with him. Now, Mark Frost is obviously, I think, there's a little bit more sort of like, no, David, we need to have this. So they're a little bit more fast paced with a little bit
Yeah.
more humour inserted into it. Like I always
Well,
remember, like going from the pilot to that first episode, and then suddenly you've like it starts off with like Cooper coming into the station. He says, "Sorry, Harry, I've really got to urinate," and off he goes. You're like, what? And then
well,
straight into it.
the whole thing, it's essentially like a murder mystery, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like Laura Palmer found right at the beginning, dead and
yep,
wrapped in plastic,
yep.
which is important somehow. I haven't really worked out why, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. And then Cooper from the FBI comes to investigate. Now, what I found actually is that so the editing maybe is the slowest thing ever, and it
Yeah.
feels a little bit dated because of that, but it doesn't look dated. But the characters are all probably, I think all of them are interesting. They've all got something about them. Like there's addictions and all kinds of stuff going on in there, isn't there? But
Yeah, it's sort of you guys as well. What they're trying to do is set up something for a series,
yeah,
but they wanted him to shoot it as a self-contained film as well, which is why they had that European ending, so that it could be sold just as a standalone movie as well.
they should have included the end bit 25 years later in
Oh,
the
they do reuse that throughout the series though, so that
ah
does come into it again. They
awesome.
reuse that footage. The film and the TV series, it's a evolving mystery about who killed Laura Palmer, right?
Mhm.
So once you reveal who the killer is, you haven't got a TV series anymore because, well, that was the whole draw. It's like, Voyager, Star Trek. you know that they're never going to actually get home, because if they got home to their own galaxy, it's the end of the series. Or
Yeah.
like Quantum Leap. If Sam Beckett is never going to get home until the last episode, at least, otherwise it's your end of your series. So
Yeah.
what happened with Twin Peaks is that it's meant to be throughout the series who killed Laura Palmer, and everyone's a suspect, and it's the investigation that goes on. But the networks have gone, no, we want to know who the killer is. You've got to reveal who the killer is. So they were forced to reveal the killer halfway through season 2. So of course they
Yeah.
reveal the killer. Well, that's the whole thrust of the show gone. So they struggled with story plot lines after that.
Mm.
So it's a real shame, because if they'd have just never revealed that killer until like that last ever episode, but the killer will be a shock. It's in the European version that you saw. It's basically the geezer in the basement called Bob, isn't it? That's not quite who the killer is.
So that means so the one I watched this week then is probably the best one to watch in a way.
It just ends with the
But
person uncovering the necklace and picking it up with a gloved hand,
yeah,
if I remember right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's more of
and
a cliffhanger.
yeah, and Laura Palmer's mother is kind of sitting there screaming, and I was
Yeah.
thinking, is she remembering this? Is she having a vision of this? Like, I'm not really sure what that is supposed to represent. Or
Well,
does she remember something else? I don't know.
in the European cut, she does that because she suddenly remembered seeing the killer at the foot of Laura's bed, and
Ah,
then she draws the picture. But what it will turn out, because that obviously ignore the ending of the European version, because
mhm.
that's but you learn that Sarah Palmer, Laura's mum, has visions and things. She's quite psychic. So she's
Uh-huh.
had a vision of someone finding that glove or the necklace. So
Ah,
whoever buried, it's along the lines of whoever buried that necklace there
mm.
could be the person that killed her daughter.
This is the problem because the European version's even longer, isn't it?
Only a little bit, because they tack on the bit with the red room. You learn more. The thing is, you learn more about what all that is as the mythology of Twin Peaks moves on. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like basically the little guy in it is called the Arm, um, and that red room is the Black Lodge.
Ah, yes, I've heard of this.
Um, and then
Uh,
obviously that you'll know that, well, Cooper's going to be there 25 years later. Interestingly enough, that 25 years later, key number there is the third series of Twin Peaks started about 25 years later after the second series ended on a big cliffhanger.
so is that deliberate then, or is that just coincidence?
No, I think he just put in loads of like cliffhangers and everything in that last series, and it got cancelled.
Hmm.
And I think he never thought he'd ever go back to Twin Peaks. And it just obviously it's 25 years have gone by and thought he'll revisit it. But it's
Yeah,
so good how it ties up to like, we know that Cooper's in that place for 25 years. So then he can pick that story up 25 years later.
yeah,
Because
and that's
basically, at the end of the episode, it even says he sees Laura Palmer there, who says, "Hello, Agent Cooper. I'll see you again in 25 years." And then something 25 years later, you do, because the new series starts. It's
brilliant.
just synchronicity is amazing.
Yeah, and that's is that Twin Peaks: The Return? Is that what that one is?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
series 3, The Return. Oh my god! So basically, what you'll find with Twin Peaks is that there wasn't anything too weird in that pilot, bit slow, and then what you'll find is the TV series is a bit faster paced. It's
Mhm.
like a quirky detective series with a
Yeah.
few like weird elements or funny bits of humor in it, and then as it goes on, it gets weirder and weirder and weirder.
Well,
Like you've got the giant in it, and you've got like
ah,
spirits
it's,
that inhabit other people and UFOs and stuff.
so this is all stuff I've got to look forward to with the rest of the series. That's awesome.
I swear that the first 1.5 series of Twin Peaks is groundbreaking TV, and without it shaped modern TV that you know today. The fact that it was the talk of everyone back in the 90s, like, oh my god, and like it was one of those. It had an ongoing series arc. It wasn't just
Yeah.
individual episodes like your Star Treks. No, it told a story over a whole series, which is nothing unusual in the Netflix world, is it?
No.
Like Stranger Things, that will tell one story over a complete series, which
Yeah.
is what Twin Peaks does essentially.
Well, I'm going to get through. episode. So probably episode 2 and episode 3 might be a little bit of a grind for us, but then after that it'll really pick up, and I'll be
No, you'll be
probably
fine
well
on it.
into it.
It's only the pilot that, yeah, it's a little bit slow and a
Okay,
little bit
all right.
like because he's got like, but it's from episode 1. Cooper is brilliant in it.
Yeah.
David Lynch is actually
I
plays one of my favourite characters in the series, Gordon Cole.
I already really like Cooper. I think he's
He
he's really
gets
funny.
better. Yeah,
Is it? Yeah. I mean, because there's things that he speaks into his dictaphone, and he's talking to Diane. Yeah,
Yeah.
like who's Diane? Did we find out who Diane actually is?
No, I once had a mate who thought that Diane was the name of the tape recorder.
Yeah, that sounds about right, actually, doesn't it?
You actually have Diane is in series 3 in The Return. She has a
Ah,
big part in that.
well, I also liked this pilot. I really liked Lucy, the receptionist. She's really funny.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
She has some interesting storylines. And
oh really?
Andy, tell Harry I didn't cry.
Oh, Andy,
Yeah,
really funny. Yeah, the sheriff seems to be the only guy that's normal, doesn't he? Really?
Harry F. Truman. But this is the fun thing about with Twin Peaks. It sort of subverts expectations because traditionally you'd have the FBI agent coming into that sheriff's turf and like, this is my investigation, but he's like, happy to have you to help us, and they're like really good friends in it.
Although every time Cooper says anything, the sheriff just kind of looks like what the there's always something going on where the sheriff kind of he pulls a face, which I thought was really funny.
Well, yeah,
It's almost like he almost realizes that what like everything weird going on is weird to him, but doesn't seem to be weird to anyone else.
but then he takes in series episode 1. He's like takes them to investigate the crime. He takes them out to the woods to use Tibetan rock throwing techniques to solve who
Oh,
the killer is, and he's got them all setting up these bottles. And he tells them, right, give me a name, and he gives them a name. He throws the rock, and it misses the bottle. Then he says, give me another name of a suspect, and he throws a rock, and it smashes the bottle. And he goes, Lucy, make a note. The rock smashed the bottle. Lucy, make
what?
a note. The bottle only wobbled on that one.
So that means that's our killer.
Yeah, or a suspect.
Well, at first, so as I've been watching it, right, I've been thinking the acting is shocking. Like,
Really?
but I'm not sure whether it's just deliberate because of the weirdness of the characters.
It's the script, and the weirdness of the characters. But I will tell you now, there's I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Ray Wise. Ray Wise plays Laura's dad.
Oh
And
yes, yeah.
he's in the prequel film Fire Walk with Me, and the scenes that he's in, they're just like the acting that he does. It's just amazing. I saw the movie Fire Walk with Me before I saw the series, so I already knew who the killer was before I watched the series.
So I'm gonna have to ask you about this then later on when we're watching the different episodes. Like when we'll watch, it's almost similar to X Files, isn't it? When you've got
Did
oh
did you know
oh
that they were going to do the talk of doing a crossover with the X Files because
no.
David Duchovny plays an FBI agent in Twin Peaks.
And this is what I mean. I think the most interesting thing is not really the mystery, the murder mystery element. I just think it's the characters.
You'll get more interesting things like there's a whole like UFO abductions in it.
Yeah.
You've got like mysterious spirits and beings that lurk in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all sorts of stuff. And
So
the other thing you've got to realize, it's like as well, he's done it as a dark version of soap operas that were popular in the day. So
mm-hmm.
where you've got the whole little intricacies and things going on, it's like a dark soap opera kind of thing like that.
Well, there was one bit, right? So I just wonder if this is an actual thing or this is just something I picked up on because of my like preferred mind or something, right? But there's a bit where the sheriff and Cooper, so it's Harry and Cooper, isn't it? They go to the hospital and they come out the lift, and there's the doctor, he's the psychiatrist,
Dr. Jacoby. Yeah.
Yes, and he's wearing a red tie, and
Yeah.
it's got like a belly dancer on or a hula dancer, on the red tie, and the hula dancer skirt is just kind of like loose fabric, like string,
Yeah.
and I noticed, I don't know how this even, I kind of noticed, right, that when he talks about Laura's parents not knowing about the fact that he was seeing Laura Palmer, he puts his finger up the skirt of the like the hula dancer on his tie, and he's like he's twiddling his finger underneath the skirt, and I thought, is that meant to be? Is that like a subliminal thing? Like, is that part of the script, like what he's supposed to do, or is that just by accident?
Sometimes a tie is just a tie. But
That's just me
Dr.
then.
Jacoby is a major character that does come into it a lot later as well.
Uh,
All of those ones do. But talking about, is that part of the script? There's a scene where they're examining the body, and he turns around to the guy who's waiting and said, "Can you give us a moment, please?" He goes, "Oh, David, can you give us a moment, please?" Oh, sure. And he walks out. Well, that
uh,
wasn't actually in the script. The bloke thought he'd asked him what his name was,
uh,
and they just kept it in because it was freaking weird.
yeah, brilliant.
But there was another accident in it with the bit with basically, you know, the long-haired, white-haired guy Bob who wears the
Uh-huh,
denim and that.
uh-huh.
He was a, basically a carpenter or a set builder who was working on the set, and basically they were like, right, clear the room and that, but they, oh my god, Frank Silver who plays Bob, he's still in there. So David Lynch just looked in there and seen him sort of crouching down behind one of the things to try and get out a shot, and he thought, oh, that's a
Uh,
creepy shot. I'm going to use that. So then, because of that, Bob is a major influence within the film or
brilliant.
within the series.
Yeah, just by accident.
Yeah, when it's like the whole when he said he couldn't think of an ending that they wanted for the European version, and he's saying one day he stood in a car park and he had this overwhelming image of just red, like bright red, and he's put his hand on a red car, and and from that moment the image of the red room came to me.
It must be awesome to be a director or like film producer and just be able to just randomly come up with things.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of my favourite characters in the series. He plays like an FBI agent in it called Gordon Cole, who's
Mhm.
basically he can't hear. He's got these hearing aids. He shouts everything, and I think one of my favourite lines is always, "Cooper, today you remind me of a small Mexican Chihuahua."
See what I mean? It's just weird.
Yeah, yeah, David
But
Lynch.
these are the bits that I'll just be laughing at when I come across them. But another character I quite like, actually, I think she's like intriguing. It's Audrey because she's a
Oh,
bit of a troublemaker, isn't she?
this is the thing. So, her in the pilot, she just comes across as being a bit of a naughty troublemaker,
Uh-huh.
but there's more to her than that. And in fact, she was one of like the pivotal favourite characters. Um, Sherilyn Fenn plays her. In fact, uh,
Hmm.
she's been in quite a few things. But yeah, that her character evolves quite a lot from just that. She sort of tries to start her own investigation into who killed Laura.
All right. Ah, see, at the moment, I was thinking maybe she did it.
Oh, who do you think did
Oh,
it? Who do you think
oh.
the killer is?
I've literally got no idea, honestly. It could be, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It could be any one of them. Judging by the way some of them acted, like when Laura Palmer's dad found out, and then and he was crying, and then his boss came through. I forgot that's isn't that Audrey's dad?
Yeah, Benjamin
Yeah,
Horn.
so, yeah. So when he comes through and he's like, "What's wrong?" He said, "She's dead." He kind of acted as if there was nothing suspicious about it. It was kind
Mm.
of like, oh, yeah, he probably didn't do it. All the way through, I'm thinking, did you do it? Did you do it? It probably turned out to be the sheriff, the most normal guy.
Yeah. Well, you never know between, but I don't think you'll guess who the killer is, though.
All
Um,
right.
but there's the whole Red Room sequence. There's like whole bits like he goes to this is where he gets the clues from who the killer is later on. He has a dream, and in the dream he sees himself as 25 years later in the Red Room. And there's that, for example, there's a line where he says, "Are you Laura Palmer?" And she says in reverse, "Sometimes I feel like I know her, but then my arms bend backwards." And then he works out that, oh, her arms must have been tied behind her back when she was killed. So there's different clues within that whole sequence that he uses.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see the next episode now, because I've got a bit more information about this one. I am a little bit intrigued, but it just does drag a little bit. So it'll be good to see how that changes.
The pilot does, because he filmed it like a David Lynch film.
Yeah.
This is more faster paced with the TV, but there's just some weird bits in it. But I'll tell you, it was funny though that so they cancelled the series on a big cliffhanger. Oh my God. And then they've announced they're doing a film. And the film is essentially, it's a prequel, but it's also a sequel at the same time. Work that one out.
Yeah.
Because you've got like, basically there's an overlap of time. It's like, is this past or is this future? So you've got Cooper seems to be like experiencing bits within the past and getting confused if he's in the past or the future. But what you found is people went into this, it flopped and people gave it such negative reactions, but it's one of my favourite films. But people thought, oh, Twin Peaks, it's that quirky, funny detective series thing with a few weird bits in it. And then what they got was full on David Lynch, with you just had prostitution, incest, abuse, a really dark territory, and it was no humor from the TV in it at all. It's just brutal. Basically, the prequel is about the last 7 days of Laura Palmer's life. You shouldn't watch it until after you've finished the series.
What, the whole season 1 and 2?
1 and 2, yeah, because
okay.
Even though it's like even though you kind of, all right, once the killer's revealed at the halfway through series 2, the Red Room bits won't make any sense to you until you've watched till you know what happens to Cooper and why he's in the Red Room. My favourite story is of when someone was going to watch Twin Peaks for the first time, and they told their mate, and their mate said to him, "Oh, Twin Peaks, is that the series where it turned out the killer was all along?" Spoilers. I just want to tell you who the killer is.
No, don't tell us.
Shocked.
Don't tell us. I'm gonna so the next week I'm gonna watch episode 1, have a really good watch of it. Hopefully I won't get bored.
Look for the clues.
Yes, we'll do.
What did you think of the log lady? She's like got the log. She carries a log around with her.
Yeah, why? This is what I mean about the characters. They're all really interesting, aren't they? There's something going on, and it's probably deeper than just like, a woman that carries a log. There's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, and you've got Nadine with Silent Drape Runners. Is she? Yeah. Ed, have you seen my Silent Drape Runners or something like that? And she's got the patch over her eye. Years ago, probably about 5 years ago, I went to the Twin Peaks experience. Mm-hmm. So what you had to do, this was awesome. If they ever do it again, I'll take you. But you had to dress up. So you dressed up. I didn't look too stupid. I just wore a black suit with a black tie and went as Cooper. But what you had to do, you had to go to this location and just wait at this location in London. It was like you just stood out this like random plain-looking building, and you knew you were in the right place because there's loads of other nerds dressed up as like Twin Peaks. And then you had like the door suddenly open and said, "Right, this police officer said, right, come this way," and then you walk down some steps, go around, and suddenly you're in like the reception area of the police station, and then you've got like someone dressed as Andy, Deputy Andy, in there with like bits of sellotape all stuck in his hair and stuff. And then you walk through, they lead you through, and you're in like the Roadhouse, the bar, the club in there. Yeah. You're in there, and they've got like singers on the stage, like what they've got like the singers in the Roadhouse, and then you're like someone will come up to you and give you a clue and have a look at that, and you look at the note, and then they'll say you've got to go and have a dance with Audrey Horne. So then I had a dance with Audrey Horne, and she whispered something in my ear to ask for a blue rose at the bar, and then that led us somewhere else. But then you could walk through. There's pictures of it on Facebook actually. But there was like you walked into the red room, and there's this woman dressed like Laura Palmer, the dead Laura Palmer, in there in the black dress and everything. And then she's got her eyes are all just white, and then she's walked over to me, put her hand around me, pulled me close to her and started dancing, and then whispered the name of the killer in my ear.
Oh.
It was so cool. You need to do Steve's Roundup.
Yeah. How do you end a podcast?
I think you just hit finish recording, and then it's like ended.
See you next time, Kev.
Signing off.